Not all girls are the same. Some women leave a marriage and rebuild quietly. And some women keep loving a man long after love becomes a wound. Her name was Hannah Monroe. From the outside, her life looked normal, steady job. Clean apartment, polite smile, the kind of woman people described as handling it well. But handling it well is not the same as healing. Hannah and Ethan Cole didn't divorce because they stopped loving each other. They divorced because love became something heavy. Conversations turned careful. Laughter turned rare. Ethan started coming home late, carrying a silence he never explained. When he finally left, he didn't shout. He packed a bag and said, "I think we're hurting each other." Hannah nodded. She didn't beg, she didn't argue, she just stood there while a decade of shared life folded into one sentence. The divorce was clean on paper, it was not clean in the heart. After the divorce, Hannah didn't date, she didn't move on. She worked longer hours, she cleaned the same apartment twice. She slept with the TV on so the quiet wouldn't replay old conversations in her head. And then Ethan started appearing again, not in front of her, on her screen. A tagged photo, a mutual friend's post, a smiling face she still knew by heart. Until one night, the picture changed. It was Ethan standing beside a woman Hannah had never seen. She was elegant, confident, perfectly put together. Her name was Sierra Vale. The caption read, "She said yes." Hannah stared at the screen until the room felt smaller. She didn't feel anger first. She felt fear because she knew Ethan. He didn't commit quickly. He didn't fall fast. So why did this feel rushed? Hannah closed the app, then opened it again. She clicked Sierra's profile. Photos everywhere. Weekend cabins, fine restaurants, places Ethan once promised Hannah they'd visit someday. Hannah's hands trembled, not because she wanted Ethan back as a possession, because she still loved him like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it hurts less. That night, Hannah did something she hadn't done in months. She called Ethan. He didn't answer. She texted one word, "Congrats." An hour later, he replied, "Thanks, hope you're doing okay." Hope you're doing okay, as if she were a stranger. As if she hadn't memorized the sound of his breathing when anxiety kept him awake. As if she hadn't shrunk herself to keep the peace. Hannah didn't reply, but something shifted. If you're still listening, subscribe. This isn't a story about jealousy. It's about what happens when love refuses to die quietly. A week later, Hannah ran into Ethan by accident. A grocery store aisle, fluorescent lights, ordinary life. Ethan looked lighter, happier, finished. Sierra wasn't with him. Their conversation was polite, safe, empty. Then Ethan said something that stayed with Hannah long after she walked away. "Sierra brought stability into my life." Stability. The word cut deeper than anger, because Hannah remembered being told she was too emotional when she cried softly. She remembered being asked to calm down when she was simply honest. Now he was calling someone else stability. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She opened her laptop and searched Sierra's name. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Social profiles, smiles, filters. Then she noticed a comment under a charity post. A woman had written, "Is this the same Sierra Vale who used to use another name?" Hannah's chest tightened. Another name. She clicked the woman's profile. There was no drama there, only loss. Old posts about Chinese letter money, about trust, about realizing too late that someone wasn't who they claimed to be. Hannah told herself to stop. But curiosity doesn't ask permission. The next morning, Hannah did something she hadn't done since the divorce. She opened the past, old emails, old calendars, old dates, and she noticed something she hadn't wanted to see. Ethan started pulling away from her around the same time Sierra appeared in his life. That overlap didn't prove anything, but it felt like a warning. Hannah didn't want revenge, she didn't want drama, she wanted the truth, because if Sierra wasn't who she claimed to be, then Ethan wasn't building a new life. He was stepping into something dangerous. And Hannah might be the only person who noticed in time. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next part is where Hannah finds the first solid proof about Sierra's past and realizes this wedding isn't a beginning. It's a countdown. Sometimes, the most dangerous stories don't start with violence. They start with a lie, and once a lie is good enough to convince everyone, it doesn't stop on its own. Hannah didn't tell anyone what she had found. Not her friends, not her coworkers, not even her sister. Some discoveries feel fragile. Like if you say them out loud, they might disappear. She spent the next few days watching Sierra from a distance. Not stalking, observing. Sierra's online presence was flawless. Perfect captions, carefully chosen words, the kind of profile that didn't leave room for mistakes. But Hannah had lived with Ethan long enough to recognize patterns. Ethan fell for people who made him feel understood quickly, who mirrored his thoughts before he finished them, who made chaos feel like clarity. That was Sierra. Hannah replayed the grocery store moment in her mind, the way Ethan said stability, the way his voice softened when he spoke her name. That wasn't new love, that was relief. and relief makes people careless. Hannah started noticing small inconsistencies. Sierra mentioned growing up in Chicago in one post. In another interview clip, she referenced a childhood in Arizona, different schools, different timelines. None of it was proof. But it was noise, and noise matters when someone is trying to sound perfect. Hannah reached out to the woman who had commented about another name. She typed the message 3 times before sending it. "I saw your comment. I'm not trying to cause trouble, I just want to understand." The reply came hours later. Short, careful, "You don't want to understand, you want to stop." Hannah's heart raced. They spoke briefly, not details, not accusations. Just a shared understanding. Sierra had left behind questions, debts, broken friendships, stories that didn't add up, nothing criminal on paper, but patterns again. Hannah closed her laptop and sat in silence. This wasn't jealousy. This was instinct. If you're still listening, subscribe. Some warnings arrive quietly, disguised as curiosity. Hannah's conflict wasn't about Ethan anymore. It was about responsibility. Should she warn him? What would she even say? "Your fiancé might not be who she says she is." She imagined Ethan's face, the polite smile, the defensive posture, the sentence he would use to end the conversation. "You're reading too much into this." Hannah had heard that sentence before. It was the sentence that ended their marriage. She decided to wait, not out of fear, out of respect for truth, because truth needs more than suspicion. Days passed, then something happened that Hannah couldn't ignore. She received a message from a number she didn't recognize. No name, just one line. "Please don't contact people from my past." Hannah stared at the screen. Her hands went cold. She hadn't contacted Sierra. She hadn't commented anywhere, which meant only one thing. Sierra was watching, not casually, intentionally. Hannah replied once. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone." The reply came instantly. "You already are." That night, Hannah didn't sleep. She replayed the message again and again. Not the words, the speed, the confidence. Sierra wasn't defensive. She was threatened, and that changed everything. Hannah realized something important. This wasn't about Ethan being fooled. This was about Ethan being isolated, because people like Sierra don't just enter lives, they rearrange them, slowly, quietly, until no one else fits. Hannah began documenting not actions, impressions, dates, messages. The tone of replies, the gaps, she wasn't building a case. She was protecting her sanity. Ethan posted a photo a week later, engagement party, champagne glasses, smiles that looked effortless. The caption read, "New beginnings?" Hannah felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that she wasn't imagining things. Dread because she knew where this kind of story usually went. If you're still here, subscribe. This is the part where instincts argue with logic and logic usually loses. Hannah finally decided to talk to Ethan, not to accuse, to check. She asked him to meet for coffee. He hesitated, then agreed. They sat across from each other like polite strangers. Hannah chose her words carefully. "Are you happy?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "I am. Why?" Hannah paused. "Do you feel rushed?" His smile tightened. "Sierra knows what she wants," he said. "That's refreshing." "Refreshing." Hannah nodded, then said quietly, "Just be careful." Ethan leaned back. "There it is," he said. "I was waiting for that." Waiting for her concern, for her doubt, for her to become the jealous ex in his story. Hannah didn't argue, she stood up. "I hope I'm wrong," she said. As she walked away, she felt something settle inside her. She had crossed the line between silence and warning. Whatever happened next, she would no longer blame herself. That night, Hannah received another message. This time from Sierra, no threats, just a sentence that chilled her. "Some people don't know when to let go." Hannah stared at the words and understood the real danger. This wasn't about love. It was about control, and control doesn't tolerate witnesses. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next part is where Hannah learns just how far Sierra is willing to go to protect her story and why Ethan's safety may already be at risk. Because when someone starts rewriting their past, they don't stop until everyone else forgets the truth. Hannah started noticing the changes in Ethan before anyone else did, not because she was obsessed, because she had loved him long enough to recognize when he stopped being himself. He stopped replying the way he used to, short answers, delayed responses, a careful distance that felt rehearsed. When Hannah texted, Ethan replied hours later. When he did respond, his words sounded filtered, like someone was standing just outside the frame, listening. Hannah didn't push. She watched. Ethan canceled their next coffee meetup. "Sierra's not comfortable with it," he said over the phone, trying to sound casual, not comfortable. Hannah felt the old familiar tightening in her chest. "Since when do you need permission to talk to me?" she asked gently. There was a pause, then Ethan said, "It's not permission, it's respect." Respect. The word felt wrong in his mouth. Hannah knew that tone. It was the tone he used when he was trying to convince himself. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the moment where isolation begins to look like love. Sierra's presence grew louder without ever appearing directly. Ethan stopped tagging friends, stopped posting solo photos, stopped mentioning work frustrations he used to share with Hannah. Instead, every post felt polished, controlled, as if someone else was editing his life in real time. Hannah reached out to one of Ethan's old friends, Mark, someone who used to show up unannounced with pizza and bad jokes. "Have you talked to Ethan lately?" Hannah asked. Mark hesitated. "Not really," he said. "Sierra thinks his old circle is distracting." Distracting, another word that sounded harmless. But Hannah heard the pattern. She remembered Sierra's message. Some people don't know when to let go. This wasn't about Hannah letting go. This was about Sierra tightening her grip. Hannah began to feel watched, not followed, observed. Her social posts received views within minutes, always from accounts that disappeared later. She changed privacy settings, it didn't stop. One evening, she found an old photo removed from her tagged history. Not reported, not flagged, just gone. It was a picture of her and Ethan from years ago. Someone had cleaned the timeline. Hannah understood then. Sierra wasn't just entering Ethan's life. She was erasing anything that reminded him of who he used to be. That realization scared Hannah more than jealousy ever could, because erasure is quieter than anger, and much more dangerous. If you're still here, subscribe. Quiet control is the hardest to recognize. Ethan invited Hannah to one last conversation, not in person, on a call. His voice sounded tired, not sad, managed. "Sierra feels threatened," he said carefully. "She thinks you're holding on." Hannah closed her eyes. "I'm holding on to the truth," she replied. "Not to you," Ethan exhaled. "You're overthinking," he said. "You always did." That sentence hurt more than any insult because it was familiar. Because it was the sentence he used whenever he didn't want to look deeper. Hannah changed approach. She stopped warning, she stopped questioning, she listened. And what she heard worried her. Ethan stopped making decisions alone. Sierra handled schedules, finances, travel. "She's just better at organizing," Ethan explained once. Hannah remembered being called too emotional for wanting clarity. Now control was being called efficiency. One night, Hannah received a message from a different number. No greeting, just a photo. It was Ethan, asleep, taken from above. Recent. Hannah's stomach dropped. The message followed. "He's safe with me. Please don't interfere." Hannah didn't reply. She saved everything, because this was no longer about feelings. This was about power, and power leaves evidence. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the point where concern becomes responsibility. Hannah finally spoke to someone she trusted deeply, her sister. She didn't dramatize, she didn't accuse, she showed the messages, the timelines, the erased photos. Her sister didn't interrupt. When Hannah finished, her sister said one sentence. "This isn't love, this is containment." That word stuck. Containment. Hannah realized Ethan was being slowly boxed in socially, emotionally, digitally, and boxes are easy to shake. Hard to escape. The engagement date was announced publicly, closer than expected. Everything felt rushed, compressed. Hannah knew she was running out of time, but she also knew something else. If she pushed harder, Sierra would tighten the isolation further. So Hannah stepped back. Outwardly, inwardly, she prepared. She organized what she had: messages, screenshots, timelines, not to accuse, to protect. Ethan sent Hannah one last text. "I need space, please respect that." Hannah replied simply, "I will, I hope you're safe." No response. Days later, Hannah learned Ethan had quit his job. No announcement, no farewell, just gone. That was the moment fear finally replaced doubt. Because people don't abandon stability without pressure. And pressure always escalates. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next part is where Hannah realizes the truth may already be too late and why an upcoming event changes everything. Because when someone loses their independence quietly, the fallout is never quiet. Hannah felt the silence before she understood it. Ethan stopped existing in places where he used to leave traces. No new posts, no comments, no accidental likes at 2 a.m. It wasn't disappearance. It was erasure. Hannah checked the basics first, his workplace website. His name was gone. She checked the gym they used to go to together. His membership showed inactive. Even his voicemail greeting had changed, stripped down to a single line spoken quickly as if someone was standing beside him. Leave a message, no warmth, no humor, no Ethan. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the part where love starts to feel like confinement and confinement learns how to hide. Hannah didn't confront Sierra, she didn't need to. Everything Sierra did was indirect. Clean, polite, impossible to accuse, that's what made it terrifying. Hannah tried one last human route. She called Ethan's mother. The call rang longer than expected. When she answered, her voice sounded confused. "I thought you were traveling with them," she said. "With who?" Hannah asked. "With Ethan and Sierra. They said they were visiting you." Hannah's stomach dropped. "No," she said quietly. "They never came?" The pause on the other end of the line felt heavy. "That's strange," his mother replied. "Sierra planned the whole thing. Planned, always planned." Hannah thanked her and hung up. The pattern was clear now. Sierra didn't just isolate Ethan. She controlled the narrative around him, where he was, who he saw, what others believed. Hannah felt a surge of guilt she didn't deserve. She replayed every moment she could have spoken louder. Every warning she softened, every instinct she doubted. But guilt doesn't reverse time. It only sharpens urgency. If you're still here, subscribe. This story isn't about obsession, it's about noticing danger before it becomes invisible. The engagement event was announced next. A small private gathering, no phones allowed. Intimate, the invitation said. Hannah read that word twice. Intimate meant unrecorded, unwitnessed, controlled. She didn't plan to attend, she planned to watch. She arrived early and stayed outside across the street, pretending to wait for a ride. Guests arrived smiling, laughing. Sierra greeted everyone warmly, perfectly at ease. Ethan appeared later. Hannah barely recognized him. His shoulders were tense, his smile delayed. His eyes scanned the space before settling anywhere. When Sierra touched his arm, he flinched just slightly. Enough. Hannah felt her chest tighten. She didn't interrupt. She didn't approach. She did the hardest thing. She stayed invisible because visibility would make Sierra adapt. And Hannah needed Sierra to stay predictable. The gathering ended without incident, but Hannah noticed something no one else did. Ethan didn't leave with Sierra. He got into a different car, driven by someone Hannah didn't recognize. Sierra waved like nothing was wrong. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She checked her phone every few minutes. At 3:14 a.m., a message came through. From Ethan, just 3 words. "I messed up." Hannah sat up, her hands shook as she typed. "Are you safe?" No reply. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The message didn't say where he was. It didn't explain anything. It felt like a crack in a sealed room. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the moment where truth tries to escape and someone notices. Hannah called straight to voicemail. She texted again, nothing. At dawn, she drove to the address listed on the engagement invitation. No answer. She went to Sierra's place next. Lights on, curtains drawn, a car in the driveway that wasn't there before. Hannah didn't knock, she watched. 30 minutes later, a man came out, not Ethan, older, nervous. He looked around before getting into the car. Hannah memorized the license plate because memorization had become her last defense. She returned home and did something she had been avoiding. She contacted the journalist she had once spoken to months ago about an unrelated story. She didn't accuse, she described patterns: isolation, control, erasure. The journalist listened. "Has there been an incident?" she asked. "Not yet," Hannah replied. "That's when stories matter most," the journalist said. "If you're still here, subscribe. This is where prevention fights against disbelief." By evening, news broke quietly. A man had been injured in what authorities described as an unusual incident. No names released, no details confirmed. Hannah felt cold. She waited. An hour later, Ethan's mother called, crying. "He's in the hospital," she said. "They won't tell us much." Hannah closed her eyes. The countdown had reached 0. She didn't know what had happened, only that something irreversible had. And that whatever story Sierra had been building was about to face daylight. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next part is where Hannah steps into a role she never wanted and why silence is no longer an option. Because once damage is done, someone has to tell the truth. Hannah felt the silence before she understood it. Ethan stopped existing in places where he used to leave traces. No new posts, no comments, no accidental likes at 2 a.m. It wasn't disappearance. It was erasure. Hannah checked the basics first, his workplace website. His name was gone. She checked the gym they used to go to together. His membership showed inactive. Even his voicemail greeting had changed, stripped down to a single line spoken quickly as if someone was standing beside him. Leave a message, no warmth, no humor, no Ethan. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the part where love starts to feel like confinement and confinement learns how to hide. Hannah didn't confront Sierra, she didn't need to. Everything Sierra did was indirect. Clean, polite, impossible to accuse, that's what made it terrifying. Hannah tried one last human route. She called Ethan's mother. The call rang longer than expected. When she answered, her voice sounded confused. "I thought you were traveling with them," she said. "With who?" Hannah asked. "With Ethan and Sierra. They said they were visiting you." Hannah's stomach dropped. "No," she said quietly. "They never came?" The pause on the other end of the line felt heavy. "That's strange," his mother replied. "Sierra planned the whole thing." Planned, always planned. Hannah thanked her and hung up. The pattern was clear now. Sierra didn't just isolate Ethan. She controlled the narrative around him, where he was, who he saw, what others believed. Hannah felt a surge of guilt she didn't deserve. She replayed every moment she could have spoken louder. Every warning she softened, every instinct she doubted. But guilt doesn't reverse time. It only sharpens urgency. If you're still here, subscribe. This story isn't about obsession, it's about noticing danger before it becomes invisible. The engagement event was announced next. A small private gathering, no phones allowed. Intimate, the invitation said. Hannah read that word twice. Intimate meant unrecorded, unwitnessed, controlled. She didn't plan to attend, she planned to watch. She arrived early and stayed outside across the street, pretending to wait for a ride. Guests arrived smiling, laughing. Sierra greeted everyone warmly, perfectly at ease. Ethan appeared later. Hannah barely recognized him. His shoulders were tense, his smile delayed. His eyes scanned the space before settling anywhere. When Sierra touched his arm, he flinched just slightly. Enough. Hannah felt her chest tighten. She didn't interrupt. She didn't approach. She did the hardest thing. She stayed invisible because visibility would make Sierra adapt. And Hannah needed Sierra to stay predictable. The gathering ended without incident, but Hannah noticed something no one else did. Ethan didn't leave with Sierra. He got into a different car, driven by someone Hannah didn't recognize. Sierra waved like nothing was wrong. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She checked her phone every few minutes. At 3:14 a.m., a message came through. From Ethan, just 3 words. "I messed up." Hannah sat up, her hands shook as she typed. "Are you safe?" No reply. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The message didn't say where he was. It didn't explain anything. It felt like a crack in a sealed room. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the moment where truth tries to escape and someone notices. Hannah called straight to voicemail. She texted again, nothing. At dawn, she drove to the address listed on the engagement invitation. No answer. She went to Sierra's place next. Lights on, curtains drawn, a car in the driveway that wasn't there before. Hannah didn't knock, she watched. 30 minutes later, a man came out, not Ethan, older, nervous. He looked around before getting into the car. Hannah memorized the license plate because memorization had become her last defense. She returned home and did something she had been avoiding. She contacted the journalist she had once spoken to months ago about an unrelated story. She didn't accuse, she described patterns: isolation, control, erasure. The journalist listened. "Has there been an incident?" she asked. "Not yet," Hannah replied. "That's when stories matter most," the journalist said. "If you're still here, subscribe. This is where prevention fights against disbelief." By evening, news broke quietly. A man had been injured in what authorities described as an unusual incident. No names released, no details confirmed. Hannah felt cold. She waited. An hour later, Ethan's mother called, crying. "He's in the hospital," she said. "They won't tell us much." Hannah closed her eyes. The countdown had reached 0. She didn't know what had happened, only that something irreversible had. And that whatever story Sierra had been building was about to face daylight. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next part is where Hannah steps into a role she never wanted and why silence is no longer an option. Because once damage is done, someone has to tell the truth. Sierra didn't raise her voice, she didn't have to. Control doesn't always shout, sometimes it just moves the pieces quietly until everyone else is standing where you want them. By morning, the hospital hallway felt different, not tense. Managed. A security guard stood near Ethan's room, not aggressively, but present, like a suggestion no one could ignore. A nurse politely told Linda visiting hours were limited today. Sierra smiled while saying it, as if she were protecting Ethan from stress. Linda's hands shook. "Who asked for that?" she whispered. Sierra answered before anyone else could. "The doctor recommended it," she said smoothly. "Too many visitors can confuse him." Confuse him, that word again. Hannah felt something cold move through her. Confusion wasn't a medical concern in Sierra's mouth. It was a strategy. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is where the story becomes less about what happened and more about who controls what people believe happened. Hannah pulled Linda aside near the vending machines. "We need facts," Hannah said quietly, "not her version." Linda nodded, eyes wet with exhaustion. "I don't know what I'm doing," Linda admitted. "I feel like I'm losing him and I don't even know why," Hannah softened. "You're not losing him," she said. "You're losing access, there's a difference." Linda looked at her, confused. Hannah lowered her voice. "When someone blocks family from a hospital room, it's not always because they're protecting the patient. Sometimes they're protecting the story." Linda swallowed hard. "Are you saying, Sierra?" "I'm saying we need answers that don't come from her." They waited for a quiet moment, then approached the nurse station. Hannah didn't accuse, she didn't demand. She asked like a person who respected rules. "Can we speak with the attending physician?" she asked. The nurse hesitated, scanning them the way hospital staff scan every situation for potential chaos. "I'll see what I can do," she said. While they waited, Hannah noticed something on the check-in screen, just a brief reflection when a nurse switched tabs. A different name flashed for a second under authorized visitors. Not Sierra Vale. Something else. Hannah didn't catch it fully, but she caught enough to feel her pulse spike. Because people don't change names for no reason. Minutes later, the attending physician arrived. He was calm, professional, and clearly tired of non-medical drama. "We're focused on Ethan's recovery," he said, "but I understand there are concerns." Linda stepped forward. Her voice was soft but firm. "My son asked if he was safe," she said. "That doesn't sound like an accident." The doctor paused. "There was an incident," he said carefully. "We're not in a position to speculate." "The police are involved?" Sierra appeared like she had been summoned by the word police. "I'm his fiancée," she said warmly. "I'm handling everything." The doctor's eyes flicked to her, then back to Linda. "We can only share medical information with approved contacts," he said. Sierra smiled as if she had already won. Hannah didn't argue. She waited until the doctor turned to leave, then spoke one sentence to him. "Who approved Sierra's access?" Hannah asked quietly. The doctor didn't answer, but his silence was an answer. Someone had, and Hannah needed to know who. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the moment where Hannah realizes access is the most powerful weapon in the room. Later, Hannah found Linda sitting alone, staring at her phone like it might explain reality. "I have his emergency contact paperwork from last year," Linda whispered. "I kept copies." Hannah leaned in. They scrolled through the documents together. Ethan's old forms listed Linda first, then Mark, then Hannah. Not because she was his wife, because she was someone he trusted. Sierra's name was nowhere. Linda's face tightened. "Then how is she the one making decisions?" Linda asked. Hannah didn't answer immediately. She was thinking about the glimpse she'd seen on the screen. A different name, a different identity. They waited until shift change when nurses swapped stations and attention scattered. Hannah didn't sneak, she didn't force. She simply stood where she could see and she listened. A new nurse asked another, "Is Sierra here yet?" The other nurse replied, "Yeah, under that other name." Other name. Hannah felt her throat go dry. Linda heard it too. They exchanged a look that didn't need words. Hannah approached the nurse gently. "Sorry," she said, "I might have misunderstood. Did you say another name?" The nurse froze, then corrected herself quickly. I mean, sometimes paperwork hasn't updated, she said. It's complicated. Complicated, another familiar word. Hannah smiled politely. I get it, she said. Hospitals are complicated. Then she stepped away. But her mind was already moving. If Sierra was using another name in the system, that meant a prior record existed somewhere. And prior records don't come from nowhere. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next twist comes from a place Hannah never expected: paperwork. That evening, Linda received a call from Mark. His voice sounded strained. I didn't want to get involved, he said, but I saw your missed calls. What's going on? Linda explained in broken sentences. Hospital, incident, Sierra controlling access. Mark went quiet, then he said something that made Hannah's stomach drop. Linda, I know Sierra. Linda blinked. You've met her? No, Mark said. I knew someone who looked exactly like her, different name, same face. Hannah leaned closer, heart pounding. What name? Hannah asked. Mark hesitated, then said it. Hannah felt the world narrow. Because it matched what she had half seen on the screen. Not Sierra Vale. A different identity, one Hannah had come across in that woman's old posts, buried under years of quiet warnings. A name that followed the same pattern. Charming, polished, leaving confusion behind like footprints. Linda's hands trembled. Why didn't you tell Ethan? She asked Mark. I tried, Mark admitted. He said I was being paranoid. He said Sierra made him feel stable. Stable. Hannah closed her eyes, relief again, the most dangerous emotion, because it makes people ignore alarms. Mark continued, voice lower. She did this before, he said. Not exactly this, but she got close to someone, then everything around him changed. Friends cut off, family confused, money moved, then she disappeared. Linda's breath hitched. Hannah felt anger rise, sharp and clean, not rage, purpose. Because now they had something, not proof. A pattern supported by a witness. Enough to ask sharper questions, enough to refuse Sierra's narrative. If you're still listening, subscribe. When patterns repeat, the truth isn't maybe. It's how many times? Hannah and Linda met with a hospital administrator the next morning. They didn't accuse Sierra of anything. They didn't make wild claims. They presented what they could. Ethan's previous emergency contact forms, the fact that Sierra's access didn't match them, the nurse's slip about another name, Mark's statement about recognizing her under a different identity. The administrator listened carefully, then said something that shifted the air completely. We can verify identity records tied to visitor authorization, she said. If there's a discrepancy, we have to report it. Linda's eyes filled with cautious hope. Hannah kept her face neutral. Because hope can be dangerous too, the administrator left to check the system. Minutes passed like hours. Sierra arrived in the hallway midweight, smiling as if nothing in the world could touch her. She glanced at Hannah and Linda. Then at the administrator's office door, and for the first time her expression faltered, just for a second, fear pure and quick, then it vanished. Sierra approached them, voice soft. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she said. Hannah met her gaze. We're making it clearer, Hannah replied. Sierra's smile tightened. You don't know what you're doing, she whispered. People get hurt when you dig into things you don't understand. Hannah didn't blink. Ethan is already hurt, she said quietly. That's why we're digging. Sierra's eyes hardened, and for the first time her kindness looked like a mask with cracks. If you're still listening, subscribe. The next part is where the administrator returns with one piece of information that changes everything, and Sierra realizes her story is collapsing. Because identity is easy to fake online. It's harder to fake in a hospital system that remembers, and once the truth has a record, it doesn't disappear again. The administrator returned with a folder in her hands and a look that wasn't dramatic, just serious. Serious is worse than dramatic, because serious means confirmed. Linda stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. What did you find? She asked, voice shaking. The administrator glanced down the hallway once as if checking who could hear, then spoke quietly. There is a discrepancy in the visitor authorization records, she said. The person listed under Sierra Vale has an alias linked to prior hospital entries under a different name. Hannah felt her pulse surge. Linda covered her mouth with her hand. The administrator continued, careful with every word. I can't share private details beyond what policy allows, she said, but this is enough to trigger a formal verification process. And yes, if identity was misrepresented, it must be reported. Reported. That word landed like a door closing. Hannah's mind went straight to Sierra in the hallway, to the way she had smiled too easily, to the way she had spoken like she owned the story. If you're still listening, subscribe. This is the moment the narrative cracks and the person controlling it finally feels exposed. Sierra was still there, standing near the window, posture perfect, phone in hand like she had nothing to fear. But when the administrator stepped out with that folder, Sierra's face changed. Not much, just a slight stiffness at the jaw, a pause in her breathing, a glance that lasted half a second too long. Hannah saw it. Linda saw it. Sierra walked toward them, smile returning like a reflex. "What's going on?" she asked, tone light. "Is Ethan okay?" The administrator didn't argue, she didn't accuse. She used the calm voice professionals use when they are no longer asking. "Ma'am," she said, "we need you to confirm your identity and your relationship to the patient. Please come with me." Sierra's smile held, but her eyes turned sharp. "I'm his fiancée," she said. "This is unnecessary." The administrator didn't flinch. "It's required," she replied. Sierra's gaze slid to Hannah, cold and focused. For the first time, Hannah saw what had been hiding beneath the elegance. Not love. Not grief, control. Sierra's voice dropped just enough to feel like a threat meant for Hannah alone. "You wanted attention," she murmured. "Congratulations." Hannah didn't respond, because she wasn't here to win a fight. She was here to stop a lie from becoming permanent. Sierra followed the administrator into the office. The door closed, and the hallway felt like it exhaled. Linda's hands were trembling so badly Hannah reached out and held them. "I knew something was wrong," Linda whispered. I didn't want to believe it." Hannah's throat tightened. "Believing hurts," she said softly, "but it also protects." If you're still listening, subscribe. Some endings aren't about revenge. They're about reality finally catching up. Half an hour later, 2 officers arrived, not rushing, not aggressive, professional. They spoke with the administrator first, then with Linda, then with Hannah. Hannah kept her voice steady as she explained what she had: messages, the warnings, the patterns, the way Ethan had asked if he was safe. The officers didn't promise anything, but they listened differently than people who think it's just relationship drama. Because now there were records, and records don't care how charming someone looks. Sierra came out of the office later, no longer smiling. Her face was tight, composed, furious beneath control. She walked past Hannah and Linda without a word, escorted by staff. As she reached the exit, Sierra turned once, her eyes locked on Hannah. And for a second, Hannah felt the full weight of what Sierra had tried to build, an entire reality where Ethan belonged only to her, where everyone else was noise. Then Sierra turned away and kept walking. Linda exhaled shakily. "Is it over?" she whispered. Hannah didn't lie. "I think the pretending is over," she said. "Now comes the truth." That evening, Ethan woke again, this time longer. His eyes opened slowly like someone surfacing from deep water. Linda sat beside him, holding his hand. Hannah stood near the doorway, unsure whether she belonged there. Ethan's gaze moved first to his mother, then to Hannah. His eyes softened in recognition, then tightened with shame. "Hannah," he whispered. Hannah stepped closer. "You don't have to explain everything," she said gently. "Just tell me one thing." Ethan swallowed hard, his voice cracked. "Was I blind?" Hannah's chest ached. "No," she said quietly. "You were tired. And someone offered you relief." Relief, the word again, but now it sounded like a warning. Ethan's eyes filled. "She said she was saving me," he whispered. "From stress, from people who didn't understand me." Linda wiped tears. Hannah leaned closer, voice soft but firm. "Real love doesn't isolate you," she said. "It doesn't erase your life, it doesn't make you afraid to speak." Ethan closed his eyes. A tear slipped down the side of his face. "I thought stability meant silence," he whispered. Hannah felt her own eyes burn. "Stability means safety," she replied. "And safety means you don't have to disappear to be loved." If you're still listening, subscribe. The lesson in this story isn't that people are evil, it's that control can wear the face of comfort. The following days moved slowly. Hospital processes, statements, protective steps, not dramatic, not cinematic, just real. The kind of real that doesn't trend online but saves lives quietly. Sierra's perfect identity didn't survive paperwork, not because Hannah was powerful, Because systems, when forced to look, remember, Ethan recovered in layers. His voice returned, his clarity returned, and when it did, he began to understand what he had been losing, not just his relationships, his self. Hannah didn't take Ethan back. This wasn't a romance ending. This wasn't a they lived happily ever after. Hannah had learned her own lesson too. Love that hurts you twice is not destiny. It's a pattern. She visited once more before he was discharged. Ethan looked at her like someone finally seeing the person he underestimated. "I'm sorry," he said. Hannah nodded. "I know," she replied. "Just don't confuse apology with undoing." Ethan swallowed. "What do I do now?" Hannah paused. "Rebuild your life where witnesses exist," she said. "Let people in, let yourself be seen, because what isolates you controls you." She stood to leave. Ethan's voice stopped her. "Hannah," she turned. He whispered, "Thank you for not hating me." Hannah's eyes softened. "I didn't do this because I hated you," she said. "I did it because I recognized danger." And then she left, not angry, not victorious, just free. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more untold true stories, because sometimes the strongest love isn't the love that holds on. It's the love that warns you before you lose yourself. And sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who look scary, they're the ones who look perfect.